So, this is a second class opener that's called Review for the Quiz 2.5, 2.6. We did a class opener yesterday that was kind of like a review. This is a second one. These exact type of questions will be on tomorrow's quiz, the last quiz of the 9-week period. So let's jump to number 1 right here. And once again, we are going to cross multiply. So if you are not comfortable with cross multiplying, you have to get comfortable because it's tomorrow's quiz. That's what it's all about. The majority of the quiz, a little bit more than half of the quiz is about cross multiplying. So you're going to go 5 times 9. You're going to actually write it out. Don't do it all in your head. Write it out. 5 times 9. And then you put the equal sign. And then you say b times 3. Or 3 times b, whatever you want. So I'm going to put b times 3. So this is your new equation. This is what we call cross multiplying. You take the numerator of one and multiply it by the denominator of the other. And then you have to set the equal sign. You have to put the equal sign. And then you take the denominator of one and multiply it by the numerator of the other. That's what we call cross multiplying. And it doesn't matter which direction you're going. That's the general setup. So what equation do we have now? We have an equation without fractions. So we have 5 times 9, that's 45. 45 equals b times 3 is 3b. And of course, the goal of solving any equation is to get the b, the variable b by itself on one side. So you really have 3 times b equals 45. If you were to divide by 3, you'll get rid of that multiplication of 3. What you do to one side, you do to the other. And of course, you could use calculators. 15 is your final answer. 15 equals b, b equals 15. Tomorrow's quiz is not multiple choice. I would like you to actually write it out, b equals 15. So we got the right answer here, and a student just brought up that you could have done it easier, and you can. Let me explain that. So instead of doing everything that we just did, we could have recognized right at the start that 3 over 9 could be reduced. So if you ever have a fraction that could be reduced, you could actually reduce it, and it'll give you easier numbers to work with. So let me rewrite it. I would have, let me put a squiggly line to not confuse the work. I have 5 over b, I'll keep the b in blue, equals, but instead of 3 over 9, if I were to reduce both top and bottom by 3, it'll become a 1/3, right? So you could have a 1/3 instead of a 3 over 9, and that just makes everything easier, right? Because when you cross multiply, when you say 5 times 3, and you write it out, 5 times 3 equals b times 1. b times 1. b times 1 is just b, and 5 times 3 is 15. So that's a way easier way, thank you for bringing that up, of solving this problem with cross multiplying, cross product property. Let's move on to number 2. So number 2, we can't reduce anything, it's already reduced. But that's a great point. If you could reduce a fraction, you might as well reduce it. It'll make it a little easier for you. So right here, we cannot reduce 1 over 6. It's already as reduced as a fraction could get. So let's cross multiply. 3 times 6 equals a times 1. So 3 times 6 is 18. A times 1 is a. A equals 18 is your final answer. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Simple as popping a pimple in a dimple. So gross. Number 3, what's the important thing to do before you start cross multiplying on this one? Parentheses, right? You have a 5 up here, you have a 12 down here. First of all, you can't reduce it. If you could reduce it, if it were a 6 over 12, I would reduce it to 1/2. That way you'll have a 1 and a 2 that's easier to multiply by instead of 5 and 12. But anyway, the important part here is that you have a binomial on the numerator on the second fraction. There's a binomial right here. That means 2 terms. So you need to keep this numerator together, and the only way to do that is to use parentheses. So we all need to put parentheses around that c plus 1 to keep it together as one term, as one item, even though it's 2 terms. So we're going to do the cross multiplying. 5 times 4 equals, you have to put you got to bring that equal sign down, and then 12 times that parenthesis c plus 1. Let's write it out. 12 times a parenthesis c plus 1. So we have an equation with no more fractions in it. Now we just need to solve it. And step 1 on solving an equation is to simplify each side. On the left side, 5 times 4 is 20. And on the right side, we're going to distribute 12 times c, that's 12c. And 12 times 1, that's 12, with the plus sign right there. And of course, the equal sign comes down again. So now we have a simplified equation. We've already distributed. There is no combining like terms to do on either side. So now we could start worrying about the goal, getting c by itself on one side. So what would I do first to get c by itself on the right-hand side? Subtract 12, that's right. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. And we will have 20 take away 12, which is 8. Bring down the equal sign, bring down 12c. So we need to recognize that this is saying 12 times c, and if you don't want that multiplication of 12, you'd have to get rid of it by doing the opposite. You divide by 12. Now what you do to one side, you do to the other. So c equals 8/12. c equals 8 over 12. Now, anytime you have a fraction, you're supposed to try to reduce it, right? If you can't reduce it, then you're done. But 8 over 12, it could be reduced by 2 or even by 4. So if you do go by 2, think about that. Oh, let's divide by 2, top and bottom. You will get 4 over 6, right? But 4 over 6, you'd have to reduce it again by 2. So you'd have to go divide by 2 again, divide by 2 again. So your final answer, c equals 2/3. Now you could have gotten that answer by taking the original 8/12 and dividing by 4 right from the beginning. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So your final answer is 2/3. And you do need to reduce it in order to get full credit on tomorrow's quiz. So we have, a lot of problems on cross multiplying on tomorrow's quiz. And then we're going to have 1 or 2 questions of these pretty long, complicated looking equations. Some require simplification. This one does not, but we do have fractions in there, as you can see. So how would we solve this equation? There's many different ways of doing it. Multiply everything by 4. That'll definitely do it. Now, if you do multiply everything by 4, this 4 and that 4 will cancel. This becomes negative 40. This becomes negative 20. And this becomes the 4 and the 2 will cancel, but you'll have something left over up on top. Now, if you wanted to, you could multiply everything by 4. Or you could say, wait a minute, this is negative 5 and this is negative 10. I could actually add 5 and make it a little bit smaller and nicer. But there's many roads to the same place. So whatever you guys want to do. Do you guys want to move the 10 over? You guys want to get rid of the fractions? What do you want? You want to move the 10 over? Or move the 5 over? I'll move the 10 over, right? So instead of negative 10, I want to go plus 10. That way it'll cancel out. And over here I go plus 10 also. And I will have 1/2 x plus 5 equals negative 3 over 4 with an x. So you see, we made the equation a little bit smaller. Now we can multiply everything by 4. Now we could have done that from the beginning. We could have multiplied everything by 4 from the beginning, but there's more numbers to multiply. And there's bigger numbers. Now it's smaller, less terms to multiply by, and there is no more 10. It's just a regular positive 5. So this is a better option here. Let's multiply everything by 4. This times 4, notice that you put that number up on the numerator position. The 5 times 4 as well, and this fraction times 4, and again, put it up on the numerator position. Why do we put it up there? Because when you have a 4 up on top and a 2 on the bottom, that's really saying 4 divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And of course, that 2 is left over up on top. So what do we really have here? We have 2 times 1 times x. That's just going to be a 2x. And then we have the plus, and then 4 times 5, that is 20. Bring down the equal sign, and 4 on top and a 4 on the bottom is really saying 4 divided by 4. So that cancels out, and you have a negative 3x left over. And now we need to get the x by itself on one side. So you could either get rid of the negative 3x by doing a plus 3x and moving it over this way, but then you'd have a 0 right here. Then you'd have to subtract 20 and then divide by whatever number you have over here. So it might be a little easier to get this 2x and get rid of the 2x and move it over there, right? You want to get x's to one side and numbers to the other. So let's subtract 2x, subtract 2x. So your new equation will be 20 equals negative 5x, which means negative 5 times x. And the way to get rid of that would be to do the opposite, which is divide by that same exact negative 5 value. What you do to one side, you do to the other. And your final equation, or your final answer, is going to be negative 4 equals positive x. X equals negative 4. So, all of this you will see on tomorrow's quiz, these 4 questions. There's definitely a lot of cross-multiplying. There's only 1 or 2 of these guys, equations, regular equation solving. What else? Oh yeah, remember, if you're solving an equation, like down here, nothing eliminated, but like let's say you were solving this equation and you would have ended up with 20 equals 20 and the x's canceled out. If it were 20 equals 20, then you would say all real numbers. Or let's say you end up with something impossible. Let's say the x's cancel out and you end up with 20 equals 40. Then you would say what? No solution. If you end up with something impossible, you say no solution. So that could pop out on tomorrow's quiz. I would also study yesterday's class opener, review 1 for tomorrow's quiz. And of course, definitely study your homework, because all your homework questions could appear on the test or on the quiz. I really just cut and paste. So you guys could study your homework. Good luck.